All right, this is 8-6 worksheet, the answer key. All right, so on number 1, again, we're going to start with our list here. So I'm going to have 1 times 5, 1 times 9, 3 times 3. Make sure we're looking at our signs here. I need a positive times a negative to get a negative, so I know they're different signs, so I know I need to subtract to get to that middle number, which is -4. All right, so when I look here, I'm going to take 1 times 9 and get 9. 5 times 1 is 5. Yeah, that can get me a 4. So if I make this 9 negative, then that gets me that -4 I'm looking for. So here's my combo. I have a 1, 5 and a 1, 9 combination here. All right, so again, 1x and 5x, keeping in mind these are your front numbers, right? So they're in the front. These are your back numbers, so they're in the back side of your factors. Okay, and you've got a 1 and a 9. All right, now if you're not sure about your signs, one's positive, one negative, throw it in. So I'm going to go ahead, 1 times 9, I wanted that to be negative, and then the 1 times 5, I want that to be positive. Okay, now do a quick check to make sure you got it right. So 1x times 5x, 5x squared, 1x times -9, -9x, plus 5x, and then -9. This middle part gets me the -4x, which is what I needed back up here. So this right here is my answer. Okay, number 2. Okay, these are all positive, so I know I'm going to have positives right off the bat. And since I know they're positive, I know that means I'm going to add because they're the same sign. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead 1 times 7, 1 times 15, and 3 times 5. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just skip to the 1 times 5 and get 5. 7 times 3 is 21. Not 31, 21. Oh my gosh. All right, and so now when I add those up, does that get me 26? Yes, it does. So my answer here is 1x, 7x. So I got 1, 7, and then a 3, 5 combo. We already know it's all addition. And 3, 5. Again, run through your check. Make sure everything looks like it should. Okay, so now that I've foiled that out, does this give me the 26x in the middle? Yes, it does. Okay, so this right here is your answer. All right, number 3. All right, so I've got 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. Be the same thing here, 1 times 4, 2 times 2. Okay, on my signs, I need a positive and a negative to get a -4 when I multiply. So I'm going to be subtracting since my signs are different. Subtract, okay? So kind of running through here, I've got 1 times 4 is 4. 4, that's not going to work. And so what I'm going to find is that nothing in this combination is going to work. So I'm going to need to flip a list. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 4 times 1. Now in reality, when I do the 2 times 2, I flip it, but it's not going to change anything. It still is not going to work. So let's go ahead and take a look. 4 times 4 is 16. 1 times 1 is 1. Yeah, that could subtract to get me a 15, right? So that might work if I put a negative there. Okay. All right, so I think I've got a 4, 1, 1, 4 combo here that will work. So I've got a 4x and a 1x, okay? On the back side, I have a 1y and a 4y. Don't forget those letters on the back. Okay, so now when I multiply this 16, I want this to be positive, and I want this guy to be a negative. Okay, so now I'm going to run through my check and see if I got my signs right. So I end up with 4x squared plus 16xy minus 1xy, and then minus 4y squared. So now I'm double checking up here. Did that give me the 15? Yep. And does my -4 right here match up with what I got here? Yep. It's all looking pretty good. So this right here is going to be my solution. Okay, number 4. All right, I don't see a GCF, so I'm going to go ahead and start my list. I got 1 times 9, 3 times 3. Okay, on 32 here, I've got 1 times 32, 2 times 16. Okay, 3 won't go into it. 4 will go though, right? So 4 will be 4 times 8. 5 won't divide. 6 won't divide, 7 won't divide, and now we're already back to 8, which we already have an answer to. Okay, so now I'm doing a positive negative here, which is subtraction since I have a negative 32. So I need to subtract to get a 12. Okay, I'm going to focus in here towards the end. Let's see here. So if this gets me 24 and this gets me 12, and if I make that a negative, that gets me a negative 12. So that's looking pretty good. So I have a 3, 3, 4, 8 combo. So I've got a 3x, a 3x. I've got 4 and 8 on the back side. Okay. Now I need the 24 to be negative. So when I look here and I take this times this, that would be my negative 24. And when I look at the inside there, that should be the positive 12. Okay, again, we always check to make sure we got our signs right. So I'm going to go ahead and do 9x squared minus 24x plus 12x minus 32. So now when I put that together, that gets me the negative 12x. And then I'm also just double checking. Negative 32, yep, this is all looking pretty good. So this guy right here is going to be my answer. Okay, number 5, I've got 1 times 7, 1 times 6, and 2 times 3. Okay, so I'm looking at my, I got a positive, it's got to be positive, positive, or negative, negative. I'm going to need a negative, negative to get to negative 43. Okay, and since they're the same sign, that means I've got to add to get to that 43. Okay, and what I'm going to find is nothing's probably going to work here, so I'm going to go ahead and just flip this. 7 times 6 is 42, and then 1 times 1 is 1. So that would get me a negative 43 if I make both of those negative. So I've got a 7, 1 and a 1, 6 combo. So I've got 7p, 1p. On the back side, I have a 1 and a 6. And then we know that they both need to be negative. Okay? And then go ahead and run through your check real quick. 7p squared minus 42p minus 1p plus 6. So does this give me the negative 43p when I combine them? Yes, it does. So this right here is your answer. Okay, number 6. Okay, so when I'm looking at number 6, I'm kind of seeing some big square root numbers here. So I'm going to go ahead and double check my square roots. 10 and 10 and 7 and 7 and see if that'll work first. So 10 times 7 is 70. 70. So now when I add it, since it's all addition, does that get me a 140? Sure does. So I'm going to have a 10x plus 7 and a 10x plus 7. Okay. Again, just run through your check. Make sure you've got the right combo here. That'll work. So I get 100x squared plus 70x plus 70x plus 49. And so when I look at that, will that get me 140? Yes, it does. So this right here is your answer. Okay. All right, let's flip over to the back page here. Okay. Okay, so on this guy, remember, he's a hot mess. There's all kinds of craziness. There's not a trinomial, a quadratic trinomial. It doesn't have an exponent of 2. So the only thing we can do here is pull out a GCF. So when I'm looking at my numbers, a 2 will come out. And then on my A's, again, I'm pulling, I got 6, 7, and 6. I always pull the smallest, so it'll be A to the 6th. And then if I look at my B's, there's not B's in all of them. So if there's not B's in all of them, I can't pull a B out. So I'm going to divide and get 10. All of my A's came out, but I have 3 B's left there. 16 divided by 2 is 8. I have 1 A left and the B left. Okay, and then 6 divided by 2 is 3, and all 6 A's moved out. And this is my answer. I can't go any farther because that's an exponent of 3. Okay, so now on this one, again, very first step we're always going to do is pull a GCF. So there is a 5 here on this one. So I get 9x squared minus 1. Okay, so now go ahead and check for, remember, difference of squares. Can you square root? Can you square root? And do you have subtraction? If the answer is yes, let's go ahead and break it down. So it's going to be a 3x, a 3x. You've got a plus and a minus. Square roots of 1 are 1. Okay, all right, number 9. Okay, again, first thing we're looking for is a GCF. amongst all the parts. I do not see one. So let's go ahead and group because it's 4 terms. So we do 4-term grouping. Okay, so now the first part here, I'm going to pull out a 3 and an n squared. And that'll give me 7n plus 5 left. On the second part here, I'm going to pull out a -5, and that's going to flip it over to a positive 7n and a positive 5. So now my insides match, so that's good stuff. We do a rewrite, 3n squared minus 5, and 7n plus 5. Okay, all right, so on this one, we have a 1 out front, right? So we're just looking for factors of this that add to this, okay? So when we do that, again, keep your signs. It's either positive, positive, or negative, negative. It's going to have to be a negative, negative, negative here. So I've got n, I've got a minus, minus. And then the factors I think that would work here, I think 6 and 10 would work. So if I do a -6 and -10, when I multiply, that gets me 60. And when I add, it gets me -16. So n minus 6 and n minus 10. Okay, number 11. Let's pull out a GCF there of n. So I'm pulling an n out, and I've got n minus 9 left. Now, again, keep in mind, once you have a 1 in here, you're done. There's nothing else to do on that problem. GCF and move on. All right, so on this guy, okay, again, I'm looking for factors of this that add to this. Okay, so now when I'm thinking about that, my signs would have to be a positive, negative, right? To get a -15, I need a positive, negative, which means I'm going to subtract to get to that 2. Okay, so I've got 1 times 15 and 3 times 5, and my 3 would have to be negative to get a positive 2 there. Okay, so I've got p minus 3 and p plus 5. Okay, number 3. All right, again, first step we're always going to do is pull a GCF. So in this case, there's a 5. So I'm going to pull a 5 out. A squared minus 3ab minus 4b squared. Okay, so now I'm looking for factors of -4 that add to -3. Okay, I know I've got to have a positive and negative, and I know that means subtraction. Okay, so 1 and 4 kind of pop into my head right away. And if I make the 4 negative, when I add it, that'll get me that -3 in the middle. So I'm going to have 5 out front still. A squared's breaking down to a and a. I have a +1 and a -4. And then a lot of you guys will forget. Don't forget the b's on the back side there. And that's going to be my answer. Okay. All right, on this guy, there's no GCF. So our only other option is to check for difference of squares. I have a difference, and I have square roots. So let's go ahead and break that down to 2r minus 3 and 2r plus 3. And that concludes this answer key.